Can one man truly make a difference?
Of course.
You know, there's one name in gaming that I think doesn't get nearly enough credit for shaping modern shooters, and that's Vince Zampella. If you've been gaming for a while, you've probably played something he's had his hands on, and now, with him stepping in to oversee Battlefield 6, I think this might be the best shot the franchise has had in years to get back on track. You see, Vince isn't just some executive with a fancy title, he's one of the key creative forces behind some of the most critically acclaimed shooters of all time. We're talking Medal of Honor Allied Assault back in the early 2000s, a game that basically redefined what a cinematic single-player FPS campaign could be. It set the tone for that you are there feeling in war games and paved the way for the entire genre to evolve. Then he co-founded Infinity Ward and helped create Call of Duty 1, Call of Duty 2, and of course, Modern Warfare. Those games weren't just popular, they were genre-defining. Modern Warfare in particular didn't just sell well, it rewrote the rulebook on multiplayer progression, gunplay, and how tight, responsive shooting should feel. For a lot of people, that's the gold standard even now. And the thing about Vince is, he wasn't just sitting in a boardroom signing off on things. He was part of the team setting the vision and making sure the gameplay felt right at every level. But when his time at Infinity Ward came to an end, most people might have taken a step back or coasted on their reputation. But not Vince. He co-founded Respawn Entertainment, and instead of sticking to the same formula, he pushed into new territory with Titanfall and Titanfall 2. Those games didn't just have good gunplay, they had some of the slickest, most satisfying movement and shooting mechanics we've ever seen in an FPS. Then Vince and the team took everything they'd learned from that foundation, the fluid movement, the tight gun feel, the emphasis on player control, and used that expertise to create Apex Legends. And that wasn't just another battle royale. That game completely revitalized the genre. It came out of nowhere, shadow dropped with no big marketing campaign, and within days it was a phenomenon. What made Apex special wasn't that it was just free to play or had hero characters, it was how polished it felt from day one. The ping system alone changed how team communication worked in shooters, making it possible to play strategically without even talking on a mic, which was huge. The movement and gunplay carried over that Titanfall DNA, so every firefight felt dynamic and skill-based, and the balance between heroes and core FPS mechanics was spot on. While a lot of battle royales at the time were chasing trends or padding things with gimmicks, Apex Legends felt like it was designed by people who actually understood shooters on a fundamental level. That's Vince's influence right there, the ability to take something familiar and elevate it to the point where it reshapes the entire genre. And just to prove he isn't a one-trick pony, Respawn also gave us Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It was a totally different genre, but once again, it delivered. Great pacing, great combat, and a single-player experience that fans loved. And that's the pattern with Vince. No matter the genre or the trend, his projects have a level of polish and focus that make them stand out. This isn't luck at this point. This is someone who understands how to make games that feel right. Now compare all of that to where Battlefield has been lately. The franchise has always had its own identity. Large-scale, chaotic battles, sprawling maps, vehicles, and teamwork. All those moments where a match turns into its own mini-war story. But the last few entries have kind of lost sight of what makes Battlefield iconic. Battlefield 2042 is the one everyone remembers for the wrong reasons. That game launched as this confused, half-baked attempt at going live service, missing features that had been staples for years. And it felt like the series was chasing trends instead of refining its own strengths. There were glimpses of potential, but the soul wasn't there, and you could feel the disconnect between what players wanted and what they got. And the Battlefield fanbase is loyal, but it's also been burned. People want the series to come back swinging, but the reality is you can't just slap a Battlefield logo on something and expect players to show up anymore. It needs a clear vision, and someone willing to make the hard calls to get it back to its core. That's why Vince being put in charge of the franchise is such a big deal. When EA announced he'd be overseeing Battlefield's future, that was the first time in years I actually felt some real optimism about the series. Because Vince doesn't just make shooters, he knows how to lead teams, set a vision, and most importantly, deliver a game that feels finished. He has a track record of making sure gameplay comes first, and that's exactly what Battlefield needs right now. And for Battlefield 6 specifically, I think his influence is going to be huge. He's not the type to let a game ship half-baked. and he understands pacing, gunplay, and player engagement better than most. If anyone can bring Battlefield back to its roots while still moving it forward, it's him.
My man.
The big thing I hope he brings is focus. Battlefield doesn't need to copy anyone else. It needs to lean into what makes it unique. Those massive dynamic battles where every match feels like its own story. That's always been the heart of the franchise. And if anyone can bring that heart back, it's Vince. This is either going to be the big comeback moment for the series, or the point where people finally give up and move on. But with Vince Zampella steering the ship for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely hopeful. If EA gives him the freedom to do what he does best and doesn't interfere too much, we could see Battlefield become a true FPS powerhouse again. And honestly, after the last few years, the franchise desperately needs that win. And that's why I'm putting my faith in Vince. The guy's earned it. If Battlefield 6 can channel even half of the pedigree he's built over the last 2 decades, we might be looking at one of the best shooters of the next generation. Because sometimes, all it takes is the right person at the helm to turn a sinking ship into a flagship, and I really hope this is one of those times.